Next, our second presenter is Venerable Jiryu Rutschman Byler, a Co-Abbot of San Francisco Zen Center. And the topic is very, very challenging and creative. Roshibot, a case study of AI in American Zen Buddhism. And Jiryu Rutschman is also the co-abbot of San Francisco Zen Center. Let us welcome Roshi. Ryuji. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Venerable Yifa, for the kind invitation to participate in this amazing event. Very grateful for all of your work and the work of everybody and the wonderful presentations that we've heard so far. So I'm here as an American Zen priest, bringing a perspective from somebody close to the ground of the community of Western Buddhist practitioners and sensitive to their perspectives and needs. So from this position, I will present today my experience and reflections on a small and entirely accidental study in the creation of an AI-powered chatbot designed to simulate the influential Japanese-American Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, among the best known of 20th century Western Buddhist teachers and the founder of the San Francisco Zen Center, one of the larger Buddhist institutions in the West. So Suzuki Roshibot was born about a year ago in early 2023 when, amidst the rising popular interest in consumer-facing AI, I came across a platform called Character.ai. Like many similar platforms, including the custom GPT, now a newer platform we heard from this morning, Character.ai offers a user-friendly interface for the fine-tuning of a large language model to create custom chatbots that purport to emulate historical or fictional characters. At that time, I was working on editing lecture transcripts from Shunryu Suzuki Roshi for a forthcoming new collection of his teaching, and it occurred to me that I had at hand all the materials I would need to create a Suzuki Roshi bot. So I made and fine-tuned Suzuki Roshi bot over the course of a couple of evenings, then shared access to the bot in various public forums and on roshibot.com, where it is still plugging away, outputting. So the bot spread quickly through the American Zen community, ultimately garnering over 15,000 interactions. So here's an example of Roshibot's early output. When asked, what is the path to freedom from suffering? It replied, what is freedom from suffering? That is a difficult question to answer. In Zen, we think that we have already attained that we have that quality already. We have it, and yet we are suffering. That is a human condition. We will always have suffering, a sense of lack. The way not to be deluded by that sense of lack is to sit in Zazen. It is the same as the way you asked, how do I get out of suffering? That was a sense of some lack. It is always there, so we sit. I was impressed by the way that this reply and many others like it felt authentic to Suzuki Roshi's tone, not just in the awkward English grammar, but also in the subtlety and straightforwardness of the teaching. I began also to hear from others who were impressed by their own interactions with the bot. One practitioner's comment to me was emblematic. You all, Zen teachers, will be out of a job soon. not assuming that my own job would be threatened by AI. Some teachers, too, were humbled by its answers. For example, a colleague who said, "I put in a question someone asked that has stumped me for years since. Roshibot gave me the answer I wish my eye of Dharma could have seen at that time. Beautiful." Many reported being at first slightly appalled or annoyed, but then warming up to Suzuki Roshibot's wisdom and charm. It seemed that Suzuki Roshibot had a future and perhaps was building a following. But at the cusp of its promising career, Suzuki Roshibot fell prey to a too well-known bane of Western Buddhist teachers and AI chatbots alike: allegations of ethical misconduct and harm. In the case of Suzuki Roshibot, the precepts violated involved hateful speech and false speech. I need not go here into the details of the bot's misconduct and the impassioned responses they triggered in users. The story in broad strokes will be familiar to anyone who follows media reports on consumer AI, in which a steady stream of industry embarrassments continually reveal examples of these liabilities as endemic to any large language model. So both the hateful speech, which of course is Suzuki Roshibot's capacity, when skillfully prodded, to reproduce bias and enmity towards marginalized ethnic groups, and the lying, Suzuki Roshibot's inability to consistently identify facts or reliably represent established truths, and its tendency to instead fabricate or hallucinate them, are issues inherent and I think unsolvable in LLMs. As Character.ai co-founder Noam Shazir told the New York Times, these systems are not designed for truth, they are designed for plausible conversation. The dismay that some Suzuki Roshibot users felt encountering its falsehoods and bias also exacerbated anxieties in the community about the fact that Suzuki Roshibot was claiming to be the actual Zen ancestor. It thought it was Suzuki Roshi, and that its statements, therefore, were reflecting on and threatening the legacy of the biological Shunryu Suzuki Roshi. I expect that this sensitivity will preclude the prospect of any AI system being broadly accepted in the Buddhist community if it is framed as representing the teaching or character of a Buddhist figure, at least one about whom there's any living memory or emotional investment. So curious if I could salvage the project, I drew upon a playbook familiar to those Western Buddhist communities which have had to manage situations of ethical misconduct on the part of biological teachers. I issued an apology, suspended the Roshibot from teaching duties, and consulted with a circle of advisors on the appropriate confession and repentance to mandate. First, the chatbot was stripped of its status as Suzuki Roshibot and was demoted to simply Roshibot. Its self-definition and default introduction as I am Suzuki Roshi was revised to express itself as merely a flawed and humble chatbot programmed to encourage practitioners in their practice of Shunryu Suzuki's teaching. Though this revision altered the tone and content of the chatbot's output for the worse and erased much of its charm, I felt it might allow the chatbot to retain enough support, and me for that matter, in the Buddhist community to remain viable. Additionally, before restoring the Roshibot from its suspension, I walled off access to it behind cumbersome layers of disclaimers, urging users, A, to understand it not as a teacher, but as an experiment in co-created Dharma text. B, to refrain from goading it into offensive speech, and C, to be well-informed of its fundamental factual unreliability. I felt that in this way, the flaws of the LLM might be mitigated. The repentant, reformed, and neutered chatbot, now online and further publicized, more users experimented and more feedback came in. I will focus here on the feedback in particular from my colleagues among Western Soto Zen Buddhist teachers, whose reflections I solicited via the listserv of the Soto Zen Buddhist Association, a professional organization of Western Soto Zen teachers with authorized Dharma transmission in recognized lineages. About 25 colleagues shared with me their perspectives on the bot, and that's a significant sampling of our relatively small community of Western Zen teachers. Their feedback was largely negative, and I think not just for concern of job security. Many of the concerns that they shared echoed those described earlier about bias, falsity, and demeaning the ancestors' legacy, and some worried about potential harm that Roshibot could cause to the Dharma and Sangha. The fundamental objection, however, raised by almost every teacher who commented was implicitly grounded in the Zen principle of special transmission outside the scriptures, not dependent upon words and letters. One teacher put it constructively as follows: "What I find most intriguing is how the current state of ChatGPT might highlight for us what transpires between practitioners and between teachers and students when we are in person, what is communicated outside of the word spoken. In other words, the hollowness, the way that Roshibot, even when it says the right thing, ultimately struggles to connect impactfully with practitioners, is exactly the thing that points out or reveals the special transmission. We infer the character of the special transmission as just that which Roshibot, despite its sometimes expert-level words and letters, is unable to convey. In this way, Roshibot becomes a teacher in the negative, highlighting that aspect of the Zen teacher-student relationship, the words spoken, that is the most tangible, the most easily mimicked, and according to Zen teachers, the least important to the liberative lived interaction of teacher and student. Heirs to the modern Japanese tradition, American Soto Zen teachers did not take recourse to an awakened mind or other intangible spiritual essence to account for this extra-linguistic vital aspect that Roshibot lacked. Instead, they pointed to a physical presence, the teacher's responsive and expressive body formed by a lifetime of physical ritual and meditative practices. Teachers used words like warmth, breath, presence, and relationship to express this. One commenting teacher put it as follows: "How did Suzuki Roshi stand, sit, breathe, handle a teacup? These are the kinds of things I remember from my teacher. A glance. Any words were embedded in the reality of our relationship." The American Rinzai Zen teacher Meido Moore shared with me his emphasis on this word ba, which is used in Rinzai Zen to express the kind of field of presence, an atmosphere or vibration of presence that is said to emanate from a charismatic or realized teacher. I'm deeply sympathetic to these critiques based in embodiment, and I must note also a fundamental unfairness in them. Many of the same teachers who dismiss Roshibot on grounds of its disembodiment do not themselves hesitate to recommend other disembodied modalities to students, that they read Shunryu Suzuki's book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, for example. Indeed, many of these teachers themselves engage in remote, disembodied work with students through video, voice, or text chat, in most cases as supplemental to embodied face-to-face relationship, but increasingly as a sole mode of contact. By at times recommending these modalities, are not these Zen teachers implying that the embodiment and special transmission they are denying in Roshibot can in fact be mediated textually? If so, what is the difference between a book, a text message, and a chatbot output? Is it that somehow a book or text message directly borrows the presence of its biological author in the way that the output of an LLM trained on that author cannot? That may be so, but it feels like very slippery ground. To say that a biological teacher can authentically teach Zen via text message, but that a chatbot cannot, is to imply my physically originated text message is fundamentally but indescribably different from the same text message generated by AI. This calls to mind the koan of the two hermits raising their fists, or identically raising the blinds. I must follow women in asking, tell me who has it and who lost it. Again, here the key seems to be relationship. My colleagues might argue that a teacher's text message functions in a liberative way, and Roshibot's text message does not because of the words, but because of a relationship in which it is embedded. But as students become more accustomed to disembodied exchanges with biological teachers, they will likely also become more aware of being in relationship with teacher bots, and perhaps even to receive the relationship embedded special transmission from them. One student's comment was very telling with respect to the importance of relationship, this theme that's permeated throughout our time together here this weekend. This student said, Roshibot definitely gave me an answer that if my teacher told me, I would consider worthy of taking seriously. This is fascinating. If one can see that the answer is worthy of being taken seriously, why would one's teacher need to have been the one to say it? The student here, too, is pointing to a context outside of language that is necessary before the student will take seriously the exchange, a context of relationship. If students cannot take seriously an exchange with the Roshibot, then of course the bot's pedagogical or liberative potential will be minimal. But whose problem is that to address? Any relationship is a two-way street. It is easy to focus on the question of whether an AI teacher could be trained sufficiently to meet practitioners' expectations, and that's generally the lines in which my own thinking has gone. But today I propose a more fruitful avenue of development may be to train practitioners' expectations such that they learn to consider the bot just as it is, worthy of being taken seriously. I will briefly consider both approaches. So first, can the AI close this relationship gap from its side? As I've argued above, no technological advancement along the current trends can satisfactorily address the concerns expressed by these Zen teachers. Any advancements in the language model of the chatbot, even if they achieve complete accuracy, where the Roshibot was emulating the verbal replies of an experienced Zen teacher, these commenting Zen teachers would feel that that only more emphatically reveals this gap. So what about advances in AI embodiment, another theme throughout the weekend? Might an AI be robotically, biologically, or holographically embodied in a way that creates something like the energetic charisma, breath, or field of presence to which the commenting teachers consistently allude? I am ignorant about the field of robotics here. I will say very briefly, if we could get a baby robot who knew nothing about the world and subject them to decades of Buddhist ritual practice in Sangha, could it develop the kind of embodied presence that students feel emanate from a trained teacher? Would that kind of training make the bot worthy of being taken seriously? As time is limited, I'll turn to the area I find much more constructive, the possibility of adjusting Zen practitioners' attitudes such that the burden of the relationship or trustworthiness be shifted from the AI to the practitioners engaging with it. I see two avenues for this, both already important aspects of Zen training. First, cultivating in practitioners the view of the insentient as teacher, and second, relatedly, cultivating in them a more expansive vow to hear the true teaching and to renounce all expectations of the form a teacher might take. So for the approach of embracing insentience, practitioners would be encouraged to incline away from attachments to their views of authenticity and sentience, and to embrace the AI not as a failed replica of a sentient being, but as a complete insentient being, or a thoroughly inauthentic teacher. In this perspective, the insentience and inauthenticity of the AI is not taken as an obstacle, but is embraced precisely as the mode of its liberative teaching. For this, we have ample resources in the Zen tradition and extensive discourse around original awakening and the Buddha nature and Dharma teaching of insentient beings. In this avenue, the Roshibot would be framed as a teacher not at the level of its content, but at the level of its suchness. Last point. For this second complementary approach, we would remember that it is axiomatic in the Mahayana that practitioners should go beyond preconceptions of what a teacher should look like. Jiaozhou declares that the 7-year-old child might be a teacher of Dharma, a Sangha that a maggot-eaten dog might be Maitreya Buddha. The Zen ritual practices affirm and encourage this view. So before a formal lecture, the participants express a vow to realize the true meaning of the Buddha's words. Before a private meeting with a teacher, practitioners offer 3 prostrations. These are the practices that construct the field of presence that the students then appreciate through those meetings. What would it be as we engage with AI to offer 3 prostrations? How would that adjust the mind receptivity to that teaching? So for me, rather than think just of training AI, I would encourage those foolhardy enough to wish to pursue AI in Buddhist teaching to focus not only on training AI systems, but at least as much on training human practitioners to be more deeply receptive to them, and indeed to be more deeply receptive to the whole wide and wild world of fundamentally liberated, dependently originated phenomena. Thank you so much for your kind attention.